As you know, guys, I have decided to make the switch over to the ES, as I believe that the price action, although not as exciting as the Nasdaq, admittedly, I think it should be a little bit less frustrating, a little bit cleaner. So let's get to work, guys. Let's start with the AM session from 0830 to 0930 to 1200, which is the AM session. So we opened up with a pretty healthy sized opening range gap, which you can see here. And what the AM session did was, at the start of the open, we traded higher. We came into, let me see here. We came into, yeah, so we just came above 25% of the opening range gap. We formed this candle here on the 5-minute chart at 0950, which is the 0950 to 1010 macro. We then ran on this rejection block here at 43.53 halves, and price found support, and then as price came back down to the consequent encroachment of that wick there, we found support. We traded higher. We took out the 0950 high and traded into a premium relative to the opening range gap. We traded to the 75% of the opening range gap, put in a high at 81 evens, and then traded back down to the mean threshold of these two candles here, which is a bullish order block. So we traded to that bullish order block within the opening range gap. And then we ran on buy side liquidity. We ran on this buy side liquidity, and we drew up into the mean threshold of this order block here to the left. Didn't quite make it there, but we drew up to the mean threshold. And see that we had a buy side. Okay, now let's go for the lunch session. So our AM session made a low at the opening candle at 43.50 evens, and made a high coming into the lunch session at 43.85 halves, and re-delivered the opening range gap. So as you can see here on the regular trading hours, the opening range gap was persistent throughout the day. So it was a factor throughout the day. Okay. So then have a fair value gap here. So coming into the lunch session from 1200 to 1330, we had sell side liquidity, which was located here. Okay, I'm actually just gonna highlight it. Okay, so we had sell side liquidity located at 43.67, and the lunch session did not quite make it below that low, but we reclaimed that same order block. So you can see there that the lunch session reclaimed the same order block, so it tested the same order block twice. And then, guys, we had buy side liquidity, these relative equal highs up here at 43.85, 3/4. So anywhere in here, really, you had an opportunity to get long, and then you had a pretty clear target. So what was that? Up to 18 points. So 18.5 points. That would be $925 if you saw it. So the consequent encroachment of this wick was a good entry, as well as noticing that this was a reclaimed order block. Okay, so reclaimed order block. Lunch session ran on this low here. Let's talk about the PM session. The PM session up into the close of the New York Stock Exchange, we ran on these relative equal highs. We were trading above the opening range gap, and then if we have a look at this candle, take a look at this order block, or the midway point. Okay, so we can see that price had a bearish order block over here that respected. We formed a high at 1440, formed a high at 4,388 evens after running these relative equal highs. We drew back down, and where did we draw to, guys? So this candle right here, we drew to that one. Notice that we came down to the 25% of this black candle, this order block. And then at the very end of the day, we again ran on our relative equal highs, sitting above 43.88. So the PM session ran on buy side liquidity, and that was that. So it was basically an up day. Now, the last thing that I want to mention is that the Thank God It's Friday model, go to our weekly range right here. Thank God It's Friday. Let's get down back to a 15-minute chart. And notice that we did draw up to 25% of the weekly range. We drew above the 20% of the weekly range, drew up into 25% of the weekly range. Didn't quite make it up to 30% of the weekly range. So I thought that that was worth mentioning as well.